All right, welcome back for another edition of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the article and video that I do for comicbookinvest.com where I talk about those hidden little treasures that are just tucked away in those dollar bins, those cheap boxes, those discount boxes at your LCS, your flea markets, wherever you buy your cheap comic books. These are those little hidden treasures that you should be keeping an eye out for based on some of the more recent news, rumors, announcements, and such that have come out this past week. This is stuff that I'm looking for, so I figured I'd share it with you so you guys can keep an eye out for it while you're digging too. If you like this, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Make sure you go check out the article over on comicbookinvest.com. Continue to tell your friends we can keep growing the channel here as we are ticking closer up that milestone, the minor milestone of 1,500 subscribers. We're almost there, and once we hit it, we will be doing a giveaway here on the channel. So just keep telling your friends so we can get there sooner rather than later. And if you want to see what books I'm talking about this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I'll be right back. All right, so as we've been doing the last few weeks, we are looking at some of those announcements, news items, rumors, leaks, things like that that have come out from both Marvel and DC the last week or so, and what books might be related to some of those news items. So hopefully you're enjoying this kind of angle that I've been doing lately. I kind of am. I mean, it ties in a little bit with what I do on the Tax Show live on Wednesdays, but sometimes some of these news items are, worth paying attention to because you can find some nice little books out there if you are, keeping an eye out for them. And the first one we're going to look at this week is going to be an announcement I think that was dropped yesterday that Fortune, not Fortune, The Foreigner was cast as a villain here in the Craven movie, and they hired this actor from Catch 22, Christopher Abbott. I don't know a lot about his work, but it looks like we're getting another Master of Disguise type character in this Craven movie to go along with Chameleon, who we know has been cast already, and we also know that it's Alessandro Nivolo, if I'm saying his name properly, is an older actor who's also been cast as some form of villain, but no news on who he might be playing. But we do have two confirmed characters in The Foreigner and Chameleon showing up in this Craven movie. So it's rounding out its cast. It's getting interesting. I don't know exactly what the angle is going to be on this, but we'll see. Now, you probably got alerts on your applications, and you might see that there's a lot of books associated with The Foreigner. I'm not going to worry and try to point out the fact that, yes, I mean, there are some retconned first appearances here that where you find out later that was the guy. I don't think that's that interesting to me, but if you do, I mean, go ahead and look for your Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man 113s. You can look for issue Web of Spider-Man 15 or issue 115 for Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man for those cameos leading up to it. But you know what? I'm just going to focus more in on what has kind of been established, at least by the market and by most people looking into this as the first, I guess, full, or just the appearance I think that has the most, value and most depth to it than these weird appearances and retconned appearances. So let's look at Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 116. Pretty awesome Sabretooth cover here. And this is, again, where we actually, you get the character, you get real introductions and so forth. So this, I think, is the book for The Foreigner that you want to pay attention to more so than the others. Now, you can see based on the news, I mean, just today, a copy sold for $30. But if you look at yesterday, probably before the news had dropped, you can see a copy had sold for as little as $2. So this is a book that's probably still in those cheap boxes that not every shop or hunter has gone and pulled out. I mean, maybe they have, but just pay attention and go and see if you can get lucky and find one of these books hidden away in those dollar bins or those cheap boxes, because they might still be in there, because this was not the most popular run of Spider-Man out there. So a lot of these do find their ways into those discount boxes. But right now, if you're going to go shopping, you can see the price has already increased because of this news and these alerts and announcements and first appearances. People rush to them as soon as they hear it. So that's why you can see some of these prices now in the $24 like $30 range. And even some of the sales are hitting that as well. But that doesn't mean they're not tucked away in those boxes out there. So that's why I want to let you know as this news is coming, like during that week, to give you the kind of heads up so you can go and dig them out for yourself. potentially. So keep an eye out for it when you're flipping through, the Spider-Mans and the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Mans, because you never know. You might find 116 still tucked away in there, and then, make yourself a few bucks or get a nice book for cheap. Now, our next item, we're going to go switch. I think we're going to go back and forth again today. We're going to do a little bit of back and forth. So we're going to go over to DC as we are getting announcements now of this new Justice League team that's been revealed, because we do know, as I've mentioned before, that they are killing off most of the established main heroes of the DC universe. So we're not going to have them, well, at least for the time being. We know it's comic books. They're going to come back. But at least for now, it looks like they're going to lean in and turn the reins over to most of these, the future state kind of like versions of the character, these next generation of the crews from the, Kal-El and the Tim Fox. You have what's her name, Flores, the Wonder Woman. You got you got the Aquaman, you got Sojourner, if I'm saying her name right, for Green Lantern. Like, all of these newer generation heroes are going to be the new Justice League basically going forward. And while I don't want to get into, we've talked about the Jonathan Kent first appearances before. It's kind of convoluted, a little tough to kind of nail down. Even Lucius Fox's son, Tim, that's kind of a tough one to go and dig out now, because that's been heavily specced on and probably dug out of most boxes. Those Batwing issues. So we're not going to focus in on that, or even the Wonder Woman annual for I can't think of her first name, but Flores, the newer Wonder Woman. We're not going to look at those, but we can look at some of the other characters here, like Jackson, who is, I believe, the follow-up, the new Aquaman, basically the new inheritor of the title, the mantle, who first appeared here in Brightest Day, number 4. So this is way back in 2010. This is, again, part of those that run, Brightest Day, Blackest Night. There were a few of these out there. There's tons ordered, so they're probably still tucked away in a lot of these boxes. So keep an eye out for it. Granted, this does have a pretty cool, Black Lantern Firestorm cover, so maybe it got pulled and you're going to find that empty spot when you dig. But who knows? It might still be there. So keep an eye out for it, because, like I said, this is the first appearance here for for Jackson. I can't think of his last name for some reason. But he is the new Aquaman. So Aqualad becomes Aquaman, I suppose, here in this new Justice League coming in the next couple of months, I guess. But this book, again, like I said, you can see it sells for a decent amount, $10 to $15. It's not like a huge amount, but that's kind of what it's been selling for the last week or so over on eBay. And if you want to go look now at listing, what the current listings are, it's kind of in that same range. So like $9 to $12 is the price being asked for a lot of the time. So it could still be in those dollar boxes. So keep an eye out for it. $1, $2 cover price or less is kind of what we're shooting for here. So who knows? They might still be out there. So keep an eye out for it when you go digging. And just to give you another book to be mindful of when you're out there digging, this one's going to be a little bit tougher, because just like some of the other books that I'd already mentioned that we're not covering, this new Green Lantern from Far Sector is another one that has been spec'd upon a while. So most of these are probably gone. You're probably not finding these in those boxes, but just be aware there is the cover A. There is also a cover B and C, as well as a second print, which is just a recolored version of cover A. Keep an eye out for all of those, because they all do pretty well, even though it looks like right now the second print is probably the most expensive, and then the cover A is following it. The B and C's aren't getting a lot of love for one reason or another. But they are all the same first appearance for this character. And you can see here, for the most part, you can see it's $17 as it sold yesterday, but also sold yesterday at auction. One sold for $250. So these can still go for very cheap online. Granted, that is from Canada, so there's that extra Canadian shipping, but still, $250 is not that bad of a deal at auction. So you can still find these cheap online. So maybe you can still dig them out of those boxes at your shops. So just pay attention. Just be aware of it, just in case. It's probably a long shot, but you never know what you might find. And as I was mentioning, you can see here, like, the cover A is really the king out of the three, asking like $25 thereabouts for most listed items right now. And then you can see like the B's and C's are in that $10 to $15 range. They're just asking for a little bit less, when you would think that there might be less copies of those two out there. I guess it's just not as the A cover is kind of the nicest one. I guess that's my preference out of the three, but still, they are all still the same book, came out at the same time, all first appearances for that same character. They're not ratios or incentives. These are just A, B, and C. So be mindful of all three. You never know what you might find when you go out there digging. So keep an eye out for them. Now, our next item is a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't read your new release books here, but Kingpin has murdered someone in Devil's Reign #5. So if you haven't read it and you're worried about it, feel free to skip ahead maybe about a minute or so, and we'll be on to the next book. But if you aren't worried about spoilers, in this issue, he believes he has murdered Matt Murdock. You can see here in Devil's Reign, issue 5 of 6, he goes right at him. He just, with his bare hands, he just goes at Matt Murdock and basically kills him. But it isn't Matt Murdock that he kills. The character that he actually kills in this is Mike Murdock, who, I don't know if you remember or not. I mean, this is getting kind of silly, but I mean, it's comic books. We deal with silly all the time, and we just overlook it. But way back in Daredevil #25, so you're not going to find this in the dollar bins. I mean, this is also believed the first appearance of Leapfrog, so this is also makes it kind of interesting. But this is the first, I think, usage or mention of Mike Murdock, who was kind of an alter ego, for Matt Murdock to kind of hide his secret identity. I know it's kind of silly. It's comic books, but it's just the name that he used way back then. But more recently, I think it's 2016, in Daredevil 607, this character was made real, basically by the Inhuman Reader. Weird power set, and it's kind of a silly story as well. But in this issue, the Charles Soule run, we do get the return of Matt Murdock's twin brother, and he is returned in flesh and blood in front of us as another character. It's not just Matt Murdock pretending to be somebody else. There he is, a whole person. So you get a little bit of a recap on the story of how Matt had come up with this other identity for himself, this Ron Mexico, if you will. But you can see here on this story from the reader how he fell asleep in reading these documents, and his powers had gone on to create and made this character, flesh and blood. So there we have the actual Mike Murdock being made in this issue of Daredevil 607. So it's kind of his first appearance, because it isn't just an alter ego in this, it is an actual separate character. So that's why this would be his first appearance there. And even though he just was murdered by Kingpin, or at least seemingly murdered by Kingpin, we might not be seeing much more of Mike going forward. But that doesn't mean we can't just go look for his first appearance anyway. Read this weird story. You can see February 13th was the last sale that I could find, the most recent sale that I could find at least, and it was $3.79, which is undercover for this one. So even online, it doesn't sell very often or sell for very much. So this is that kind of book that's probably still in those cheap boxes. And even if you look online, you can find it for $3 to $4. So cover price or less online as well. So not saying this is going to be like a huge key or anything like that. It's just a fun little tidbit, fun little nugget that kind of ties into some stuff that's happening in the comics right now. So that's why I pointed out, and that's why I just kind of look for it. Because for a buck, it's worth just grabbing just to put into the collection, I think. It's just kind of a fun little thing. And who knows? Who knows where it might go? Maybe, Mike Murdock is not dead, and maybe he will come back. Who knows if we've seen the last of Mike Murdock. Now, we do have some news on this Gotham Knights TV series. I know it's CW, but we do have some news. So there are some characters coming, and books are actually kind of selling a little bit this week as a result of some of these announcements. And the first one being that they're adding Bluebird and Cullen Rowe. So Harper and Cullen Rowe, brother and sister, they're adding them both to this series. But Harper Rowe, the older sister, is the one who becomes this character of Bluebird in the DC Comics in the New 52 era of comics. So it's one thing to keep an eye out for, because there are still plenty of New 52 books tucked away out there. Granted, the Batman books are a little tougher, at least the early runs, because even though they were heavily printed for New 52, there's a big demand. I mean, Batman was kind of the cornerstone of the universe. It kind of still is, a little more so than some of the other big three, like more so the Wonder Woman and Superman. Batman is kind of the king of DC these days. So Batman #7, however, is the first appearance of Harper Rowe, who becomes Bluebird. Becomes the character of Bluebird. So you can grab her first appearance there for, look, on March 10th today, one sold for free shipping, $13. Not super expensive. And you can see some of the asks are in that $10, $12 range, as high as $22, because it is her first appearance. Grant, like I said, there's I think a decent amount of copies out there, and it is a book that's been around for a while. But this is her first appearance of the character of Harper Rowe. Now, it isn't until later in the run where she becomes this character Bluebird, this almost like, I don't really want to say a sidekick, an associate, I guess, of the Dark Knight in Batman 28. So still a New 52 run. You can find this book still, out there in those boxes because, like I said, as that New 52 run kept going, you still find, at least I still see a bunch of New 52s and a bunch of Rebirth books, Batman, every title, still just kind of littering a lot of these cheap boxes. And she first appears as Bluebird inside this book, and you can see one sold today for $15. So it might be a little bit on the uptick. And you can see asking prices are kind of in that range where 15 is kind of the cheapest right now. So 15 to $21 are a lot of the asks. There are a little bit some higher. You might be able to sneak one a little bit cheaper, but that's kind of the range that we're looking at right now if you go shopping for this book. That's one of the announcements for characters we were getting on that show made this week. And then because we also got this yesterday with Duella Dent and Carrie Kelly, who was from The Dark Knight Returns, also being featured. Now, Carrie Kelly is another Robin, but like I said, her first appearance is in Dark Knight Returns. It's a very expensive book these days, or at least not very, but it's an expensive book. You're not going to find the dollar bins. So I'm not going to bother covering Carrie Kelly, but Duella Dent, Joker's daughter, is a character you might be able to find. Now, you're not going to find her first appearance, most likely, and that's Batman Family number 6. This is a much older book. It's kind of a thicker, almost like an annual type of book. You're probably not going to find that for $1, but keep an eye out for it in case. But that is where we're getting the first Joker's daughter, Duella Dent. But she had a much different look and vibe than what she currently has, or when she was reimagined in New 52 with the kind of like Joker face pasted like a mask on her face. That came about in Catwoman 23, also from the New 52. These you might be able to find out there still if you go flipping through and digging, because this is kind of the character we probably will get because it's more visually stunning. So this is probably the version we're going to get. Maybe. I mean, it could be wrong, but I can see it happening. On the CW, they might try to press the boundaries a little bit and give us this kind of masked, demented version of the character, almost punk rock-esque Joker's daughter. So she first appears as this kind of version in New 52. So in the New 52, Catwoman number 23 is where you're going to find that. So that's why I suggest keeping an eye out for this one. And this one, you can see it's, again, not that expensive. One sold again today for $5. So it's a little over cover. So it's not hitting huge numbers yet, but there are some asks. The asks are starting to rise as now copies are being asked for $8 to $15 in a lot of cases. Again, there's outliers aside, but this is kind of the general range that we're looking at right now. So once again, keep an eye out for $1, and maybe you make a few. And who knows? Maybe the character takes off, and this becomes a much bigger deal than it is currently. And with that, I know we kind of doubled up on DC a little bit. We are going to kind of finish up with Marvel, and more specifically Marvel Star Wars, because the biggest news, I think, at least for me this week, was the release of the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer. And despite the wonky looking Inquisitor, I'm still looking forward to this. Yes, it looks like a little bit like Uncle Fester, but I'm still looking forward to it. It may not be what I was expecting to look. Maybe they'll tweak it, maybe not, but that's not the biggest deal. But I am looking forward to Obi-Wan, and I feel like there's hints in some of the things we see in the trailer that they might be adapting some of the stuff we did get in these little bits of Marvel in the Obi-Wan journals. And those journals, from the journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi, it tells some of the stories of him on Tatooine when he was looking over a young Luke from a distance, and even they mix it up like a little bit. We could be seeing an adaptation of a sort in these in this series coming up on May 25th. So with that said, I've been talking about these for a while. I think I probably put this in the article before. If not, I know I've mentioned it before, or whether it be on the Star Wars show too, or not. My buddies, we've talked about these books for a while. They are still out there in a lot of these cheap boxes because, to be fair, the Star Wars was pretty heavily printed when it was reintroduced in 2015. So there are a ton of these issues. I mean, I even got a 1/100 sitting next to me, and these were not that hard to find for a while. A little tougher these days, but yeah, it's still stuff that's out there. And I've been grabbing these issues out of dollar boxes for as long as every time I'm in there, I flip, I look, I would just grab them for a buck or two. I was pulling these Obi-Wan journals. So the first one being the introduction of the Obi-Wan journals was Star Wars 7 here. So keep an eye out for that one, obviously, because it is the start. You're looking at right now, copies are selling yesterday with the trailer dropping 15, 20 bucks roundabouts. So it's already kind of moving. And on the market right now, even though most in that $15 to $18 range, you can still see there are cheap copies even being listed out there because there are a lot. So you can see a copy listed for $4. So just be mindful of that. But it doesn't hurt if you find it for $1 or two to just grab it at that price because it's still much cheaper and probably a good bet over just trying to shop online and trying to get lucky there. Now, it didn't happen sequentially, so it's not like issue 7, 8, 9, 10, or wherever are the Obi-Wan journals. It kind of jumped around throughout the series. So the next installment of the Obi-Wan journals didn't really drop until issue 15. Now, this one got a little bit of heat because of Black K showing up on Boba Fett, and Black K does show up in the guts. He's not on the cover, but he's in the guts of this story as kind of like a quick appearance, and that is why this one has been bumped up a little bit, but you can still see March 10th today, $2, $2.25. It's still pretty cheap if you want to buy it. But there are still some asking prices, $10 to $15, and a lot of them are trying to push the Black K appearance inside as the reason to grab it. That said, that might happen. Maybe we get the Obi-Wan journals and we do see Black K appearance in this series because he didn't, even though he didn't die in Book of Fett, that's still in the future. Obi-Wan is in the past. We can still see that connectivity to the larger Star Wars universe and see another Black K appearance, even if it's just a small role. He does, and I don't know, it's something I can see happening. I'm not saying it definitely will because they might focus more on this Inquisitor angle, but it is something that is a possibility for at least a quick appearance, maybe a 1-episode stint on the show. Who knows? Because it is a limited series. We're not getting a bunch. Who knows if they'll have time to kind of sneak Black K in, but maybe they do. But that's still a continuation of the Obi-Wan Kenobi journals in issue 15, which will take us to the last one, which is the third issue in this. But it's issue 20 of Star Wars. And this is another one, again, that with the Black K appearance, because he is in the story, he shows up on the cover here. And that made this one a little more desirable, I guess, over the rest. As you can see, even a couple days ago, before the trailer dropped, 18 bucks this one sold for. So this one has been a little bit pricier because Black K is on the cover. And you can even see in some of the asks, $15 to $30 plus is really what this kind of thing is asking for on the market. So keep an eye out for it. You might be able to dig one out of a box for cheap, but those are the 3 issues from the Obi-Wan Kenobi journals you kind of want to pay attention to when you're flipping through those boxes, because I think they might tie in a bit to the show once we get it in a couple months. But hopefully you like that, and hopefully you like these picks, and you can keep an eye out for these picks, and hopefully you find them. Good luck hunting. Please tag me on Instagram if you do find them, because I love seeing that stuff. So thanks for stopping by and checking in and checking out the article over on comicbookinvest.com, as well as the video here on Renovision. And like I said, please tag me on Instagram. I am happy to see the books that you grab, the books that you find based on some of these recommendations, because that's why I do this, because I'm trying to help others out in finding some cheap books. Things that they should be looking for. And when you guys find them, I am quite happy to see it. So I love it when you guys tag me. So tag me on Instagram so I can see it as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Continue to tell your friends so I can keep growing the channel. And with that, I will see you guys soon with some more content. All right.